Recording in progress. Welcome back to the Level 3 Award in Supporting Teaching and Learning in Schools. I'm Vicky, and we are moving on to Lesson 3, Understanding Child and Young Person Development. So we're going to get into the rates and the speeds of development today. In Lesson 1, Communication, we looked at ages and stages, and I said that we will be looking at when development doesn't quite happen as expected, because that's really important. And of course, if you're supporting children and young people, you are more than likely going to be working with those children where there needs to be some intervention because that hasn't happened. So hopefully you'll gain an understanding of factors that can impact development and the importance of early intervention. And then we'll go through the assignment, of course, as usual. So as lesson 1, just a recap there on the stages of development. So hopefully we're happy with that. Every child, every individual is different, as we know. So if you watch a baby develop, they will all do it in a slightly different order. You might be expecting them to crawl and then they suddenly walk instead, or they bum shuffle. And it can be all completely normal and absolutely fine and nothing to worry about. But the rate, so the sequence is the order and the rate is the speed that it happens. So important to get those clear. So I'm going to ask you to make some notes about this. How do you think child development can be effective? What factors affect child development? So if a child's not quite developing at the normal rate that we might expect, normal very much in inverted commas, then why do you think that could be? So pause the video and make your list. Okay, so from the NICE report in 2022, these were some of the factors that they picked out of their research. So you can see low income, lone parent, won't read through all of them, but have a read. Um, some of them we know that they're important, like child not read to or doesn't visit library, but the fact that they're on this list is quite stark, isn't it? I'm being a younger sibling and young for the academic year, which is quite hard if you're both. But of course, it won't always affect development. Um, so some of them we know are just bad for your health. Some are circumstances that cannot be helped in any way, and some are things that could be changed. And they put them into groups, which are quite helpful. So socioeconomic status, your income, your housing measures, your early years in childcare. So particularly if you have had some of those factors in the first few groups there, it's really important that those children have had some kind of childcare or early years, a good experience. And then parental relationship and marital status measures. So common attitudes towards parenting are the key thing there, which is huge. Child factors. So again, we talked about your position in the family and when you're born, ethnicity measures and maternal factors. Okay. So pregnancy, obviously having a huge impact for years after the baby is actually born. So, how in the UK are we monitoring and measuring this at every stage? So, you may know this if you've had children yourself, you may not. Up to age 2.5, it will be in the hands of the NHS to give appropriate support, really. So, that could be doctors, nurses, health visitors. There'll be newborn baby checks that all newborns will get, etc. And then they're going to check on these things. So there are rough kind of a 1 year check, there's a sort of rough 2 year check. And sometimes things will be noted, and you know, as the parent, that actually I don't think that is anything to worry about. And there'll be other things that you are thinking, actually, I've been thinking maybe he or she can't say as many words as some of their peer group. Maybe they're not moving, walking, they're not showing an interest in other people, etc. But nothing could be picked up there. They could be developing absolutely fine. And then once they get into 3, it's out of the hands of the NHS and into early years foundation stage if they are attending some kind of childcare setting. Um, Interestingly, how disability affects development. So there are two areas for this: special educational needs and long-standing illness or health conditions. These could be physical disabilities and they could be learning needs as well. And these four findings are quite stark, really, to have a look at those. And we might think it's great to have less risky behavior, but actually, there's an important part of adolescent and teenage development that they could be totally missing out on, and their emotional and mental health could be significantly impacted. So, very important that children get early intervention um, if they need it. So, for these reasons, developmental delay that could have been picked up early on by the health visitor or a nurse or a doctor, speech and language issues, very important to get early intervention with that. Risk of mental health issues and vulnerability to negative external factors. So, any factors of those sort of nice report groupings. Um, Early intervention is incredibly important. I would urge you, once you finish watching this, to go back through the slides and watch this video um, because it gives some really good suggestions and will be very useful for your assignment also. So there are some good, very, very early interventions for toddlers, home talk, and then the preschool program, Butt Talk, because an early talk boost is incredibly important. So again, I would urge you to go back through this, and this is included in your pack also, the early talk boost information, and have a read of this in your own time. Okay, and always there'll be services that can recommend these type of groups to parents and carers. So speech, language, and communication, as the DFE say, they're in exploring language. Educational success is so hugely linked to language skills, unfortunately. Early intervention is key, and we've talked about some of the services that are available. If you were working with very young children, you'd be able to suggest activities and games to support developing speech and language. Um, and you can use a range of resources to do that. It's important that you're aware of them in case you need to be recommending them. There will always be a team around the child with any kind of speech and language or any special needs intervention. And in this case, with speech and language, these people may all be involved around the child and they'll work together to plan the intervention. Nothing more important than the use of play to support speech, language, and communication with young children. So, role playing, imaginary situations, literally nursery rhymes, repetitive patterns, those sorts of things. And so, there are some links here again to go back and look through of activities to try out and a great video on the use of play in speech and language development. So, please go back and watch those in your own time. It's important to consider difficult points for those children who need a bit more support. They're an upheaval for everybody, but for the children who are not developing at quite the same rate, this could be a huge time of anxiety. Year 6 to year 7, particularly. Often schools will do extra visits for certain children, and the Senko or a teacher or a teaching assistant will go with them to have a look around the school and be familiar. And connections with staff members can be made at this point as well. So, with all that in mind, assignment 3 is standard written assignment. So, again, there's a template for this. So, you'll be asked to think about a lot of the elements from this. So, I would urge you to go and look at those videos, look at the leaflets, have all that information at your fingertips. So, use the information from the lesson, but research a little bit as well. What's available in your workplace? What are you going to use to write about child and young person development? So, good luck with it. And thank you for listening.